So I'm going to talk about the understanding of these data structures from my own study experience. So first, vector. Vector is a sequence of data elements of the same basic type. Usually we see something like vector equals to a combination of numbers, for example. If it's a purse, it might contain something like lipstick, eyeshadow, eyeliner, or we can think of it as a game. So we will have Switch, PSV, PS2, Xbox, etc. We can see that all the elements within a vector belongs to the same type. Like these are all the makeup tools, and these elements are all like game consoles. In R, it's like we'll have a number vector which contains all the numbers like 1, 1, 1, 1, all the numbers, or a string vector which have all the components as strings like A, B, C, D. So this is the vector. What about list? By definition, lists are the R objects which contain elements of different types. So how can a list contain different types of data? For example, if we have a list, my list, and it contains several objects like A, B, C, D, E. For A, we can assign something, such as a numerical vector, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And for B, we can give it a string, like paper. And for C, we can give it a logical, like true or false, true. For D, we can give another numerical thing, like 3. For E, we can assign a vector of string, like paper and pen. So with this method, we can put several different types of data, like number and strings, vectors, Boolean, into a same basket. So what's the difference between the vector and the list? For list, in my understanding, we can think of it as a backpack. So we can put everything, different types of lists, into this backpack. And what about matrix? So matrix is, by definition, is a two-dimensional data structure. It used to bind vectors, or it can be things like A, B, 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 C, C, C. So all the elements in the first matrix are numerical, and all the elements in the second matrix are string. The difference between the matrix and the vector, as we can see that matrix are two-dimensional, while vector seems like one-dimensional. And we can think of this matrix is a combination of vectors, such as this is our first vector, V1, V2, V3. So in R, if we want to generate a matrix, one way to do that is to first generate a couple of vectors, and then we combine them into a matrix. So what is data frame? In my understanding, like when we first look at data frame, it looks really similar to the matrix, right? We have different rows like this, and we have different columns. We can think of data frame as a more flexible type of matrix. The first one is that they can contain different kinds of data type. So Here in the matrix, let's look at this v1, v2, v3. They are all numerical vector. But in the data frame, it can be either numerical or string, any other different types of vector. For example, for the first column in the data frame, we can have names like Tom, Jen, right? Different names. This is string vector. And for the second column, we can have grades, 3.3, 3.8. So this is a numerical vector. In the matrix here, we can do that. We can now combine string vector with numerical vector. But in the data frame, we can put these two types of things within this rectangular shape. It is convenient to do so in Python or R if we want to get the values of a certain vector. We don't need to count the location, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We don't need to do that. We don't need to count the location to retrieve the data from the matrix. Instead, we can get the values of the data by simply calling their names. For example, if this data frame is called A, and we can use A name. As we can see that the features of the data frame enable us to easily manipulate the data, especially when you do something like cleaning or merging the data sets. So all these understandings are summarized from my own study experience. I hope it helps, and if there are any mistakes, please leave a comment below, and I would really appreciate it. Thank you.